it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess, it's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
Tucker Carlson is back on Twitter, and the censorship-pushing libs are melting the fuck down. How dare you, Elon?
Yeah, Elon just posted that he's going to have, he didn't say there's going to be a special deal, but the other thing that Elon tweeted out in that message was that they might start bringing, he said they plan to start bringing subscription and ad revenue video models to that platform, which would be a game changer, obviously.
Of course.
So
that's the first thing I thought of.
That'd be great for me. Sorry, TJ, but that'd be great for me because I got way more followers on Twitter than we got subscribers. So
I know. That'll bring people to us. But what I was gonna say is that that was the first thing I thought of when I heard the news. I was like, oh, this is about bringing TV or bringing some sort of model to the to Twitter, making Twitter's, bringing a Netflix to Twitter or some sort of streaming Hulu like service to Twitter, and this could be like a test sort of thing. But just imagine this would be like the paradigm shifting for media, for them to be able to do this, because what if he gets the same or more subscribers this way?
True.
Like that would be a game changer. But that's my thoughts on it. Any other thoughts on the intro video?
Yeah. So look, there's a couple things to take away from this. Number one, it's quite clear that since Twitter came under new management, Elon Musk had shook things up, some for the good and some things just didn't change. But all in all, the fact that Tucker Carlson is going to potentially have a large show on Twitter, let's be very clear here. Twitter was the area in which people like Donald Trump were able to get a huge following, and everyone on corporate media was melting down, demanding for more censorship and accountability. And the fact that Twitter is under new management, I do have to wonder just how consistent Elon Musk will be in regards towards other voices. Look, RBN, HardLens Media, Due Dissidence, and everybody else, and yes, I do mean everybody else, will then probably have the same opportunities, potentially, that, you know, if Elon Musk is making this space out to be for monetization and ad revenue, then so be it. I'm just really curious, though, how consistent will it be? Because good friend of HardLens Media and of RBN and a few other independent media networks, Case Study QB, his Twitter account is still censored, and all what he's posting up there is just clips from corporate media. But if you log in incognito, Elon Musk, you should look into this. Twitter says, hey, you can't look at this. This is adult material. You can't, it's too sensitive. And as soon as you log in and you then click view it, all it is clips from Fox News, MSNBC, CNN. So that is something that needs to be addressed. Then, of course, you're going to have politicians who are going to demand more regulation. And then finally, number 3, we got to check on the AOC because she said deplatforming works, and that dog don't hunt.
I think Case Study QB said that his account was censored during the pandemic when he was putting up videos about COVID. I believe that's what he told me.
But from corporate media,
yeah, exactly. No, it was still corporate media. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was still corporate media. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the AOC clip that Kit just referenced, where her response to Tug Carlson, she was on her Instagram because apparently she like this social media star now, not a legislator. So she do these cringy ass Instagram videos where she like, I just got one response to Tugger being fired. Deplatforming works. Does it though? Because I keep seeing this pattern of people getting deplatformed. They go on another site and then they get bigger than ever. They go through a new cycle. So it's ridiculous they keep repeating that.
That happened to Colin Cowherd in sports. He got deplatformed from one and went to Fox, and his show was bigger. His contracts are bigger. But there is a certain faction, I know all of you have seen it, of the left who would label us, this conversation, like Tucker Carlson lovers, just because we're talking about Tucker without calling, without adding adjectives, just adding a bunch of adjectives every time we talk about him, like racist Tucker every time we refer to him. When you don't have that sort of conversation, then you're like somehow bowing down. The simple fact is this: but regardless of what you say, the part that he was doing, where the left this vacuum to where people are only able to go to him for coverage like this, is when it came to the Ukraine war. Like, that's the problem. If we had a left where there was an outlet for that, sort of to be had, then maybe there, this gaping lane that he provides, people wouldn't sort of look to him for that sort of coverage. But what do you guys think of that part of it?
Go ahead, Keaton.
Well, that Tucker video that we just watched was the most on the nose version of a few different clips that we've seen surface of his. The first being right after he was fired. Then if you go back a little further than that, he did a monologue. I think it was the Friday before he got canned. I think it was his last broadcast, maybe second to last broadcast, where he talked about how, lots of these networks value their advertisers more than their audiences. And then we covered on our show, I don't know if you guys covered this on yours, but he went on some podcast, I forget what the podcast was, where he talked about his regrets over his years in the sort of TV news business, specifically talking about his biggest regret being supporting the Iraq War. And then he got into a more sort of systemic critique about how the media promotes certain falsehoods at the behest of certain interests that either fund the media or that the media is just interested in propping up to keep the sort of polarization, sort of hate ink game going. So we've seen him sort of over the past several months sort of make very, very slightly, more opaque or obtuse versions of this statement that we just saw, which leads me to believe that he was probably at odds with upper management at Fox for the last number of months, which could ultimately be why they fired him. Perhaps there was a straw that broke the camel's back that we don't know about yet, but that's what I think.
My guess, my past few Russell, my guess is the block. Like, I think it's not a coincidence that he was talking about the black socialists who were charged by the FBI, and then he was fired like immediately after that. So
that's a dramatic example because if you notice, Nick, he borrowed a line directly from that segment in this video. He says people should be allowed to say what they think is true in this country, no matter what. That's exactly word for word what he said when he did that Uhuru segment. Exactly, word for word. He took that exact phrase and plugged it right into this most recent video. So, yeah, I think there was a conflict brewing for a while, and perhaps there was an incident that put upper management over the edge. Perhaps there wasn't. Perhaps it was just a drip, drip, drip kind of thing, and then there was too much water in that bucket, and they had to tip it over. Who knows? But this definitely suggests to me that he has been at odds with the execs at Fox for quite some time.
Yeah, Russell, you want to chime in? My bad. I cut Russell off a little bit earlier.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Well, for one thing, with Elon, when he first took over Twitter, you had all of those "the walls are closing in" style articles. Oh my God, it's chaos over there. It's gonna fall apart.
Twitter's not gonna be here next week.
Oh my God, it's just gonna fall off a cliff. And I said, okay, man. You can think about what this guy, whatever you want, his business history, whatever, man. He's a winner. That guy tends to win. I've been watching them. Oh, my God. How many people are crying that they didn't invest in Tesla 10 years ago? You've been watching the short sellers talking about how Twitter is going to tank for as long as I can remember. And he comes out on top every time. Now, I'm not getting into the mechanics of that. That's not what I'm talking about. That guy said before he set foot in Twitter, we need to get rid of 75% of the workforce. He said that before he set one foot in the door. So then he goes in and he sets conditions that are bound to clear out 75% of the workforce. And they write all these articles like he didn't realize what he was doing when he gave them that ultimatum. That's exactly what he said he wanted before he walked in the door. He wanted to get rid of 75% of them because the company has never made a profit. It never made a profit. So you have that element of it with Tucker, and with both of them, the left is put in a very funny position because you got a guy like Elon Musk. We're leftists, man. We're not like Ayn Rand, billionaire ball lickers, man. I mean, we're not ones to be like celebrating. Yeah, you go the heroic entrepreneur and get the government off Elon's back. We're not. That's not where we're coming from ideologically. But the left, or what passes for the left or the establishment left, it's so pathetic that you find yourself rooting for Elon Musk because
I don't. I hear you saying.
The system is so corrupt that unless you had a guy like Elon in play, you'd have nothing. You would have no even.
There's no Twitter files. Yeah,
I have no Twitter files. Yeah. And it's very similar with Tucker Carlson. Like I don't like Tucker Carlson, but the kind of shit that these guys are trying to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's like in the 60s when they would have a pirate radio station offshore, so they could broadcast whatever they want without answering to the FCC. But you've got these super wealthy billionaires trying to do pirate radio. It's crazy, and it puts us in as leftists in a weird position of like, who do you side with?
I will say something, and Kay, I know you want to chime in.
No problem.
And this is what I generally do as a Marxist. I root for capitalist infighting. I want to take advantage of divisions and capital. This is what Marx talks about all the time. We should take advantage of divisions and capital. When you see liberals melting down over Elon Musk, and when you see Elon sticking it to the lib, I agree with Russell in the sense because I'm like rooting for that conflict. I am rooting for that chaos. So when I see Elon Musk have a bunch of imperialist, capitalist, liberals melting down, that's hilarious because that capitalist chaos, capitalist infighting that we should always take advantage of. Always take advantage of. That was the point I was trying to make earlier. But go ahead, Kid, if you want to chime in.
So, look, when it comes down to Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk, the way I view it and what our job is as independent media and commentators and everyone else in this sphere is that we need to judge people accordingly for their actions. It's easy to fall in the trap of, oh, I don't like him because X, Y, and Z, and I will not critically think or look past anything past my biases. We have to look at everything through a clear lens. But yes, we all have our biases and perspectives and points of view. However, the fact that Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson are able to cause this amount of liberals to critically melt down and get panic attacks because, oh, Tucker Carlson's going on to Twitter. Well, hey, that's Fox News' own fault for getting rid of their own MVP. Yeah. I remember speaking about this 2 weeks ago on Larry Sharp's show in regards towards Fox News letting go of Tucker Carlson. And, we both agreed, Larry and I said that Tucker's going to land on his feet. Obviously, he did. And this could potentially blow up Twitter to become a very powerful social media platform. Yep. On the other hand, too, this is kind of a huge blow to Fox because they did this before where they fired their MVP. They fired Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck. Both at their one points of time were at the level of Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, he's higher. He's bigger
Fox
than they ever were.
Yeah, exactly. And Tucker, though, the reason why he is a major loss is unlike those other hosts, and I think I mentioned this before on the last Power Panel, Tucker had a wide range of guests, and unlike the standard Fox News tactic of either shutting off their mics or dismissing them, Tucker let his guests talk, from Jimmy Dore to Tulsi Gabbard, Dr. Cornel West, and everybody else that showed up on that show. He let his guests talk, and he's going to bring that same format to Twitter, and he's going to be uncensored, and he's going to be triggering the AOCs and the vote blue no matter who people.
It's gonna be
so be it. It is hilarious, and I say I embrace this. I'm going to grab the popcorn. Yes, I'm impressed with what Elon Musk is doing, and has he done things that I disagree with? Absolutely. That thing with Substack, oh, what the hell, dude? As well as some of the other policies on Twitter, no, I don't like that. But I do respect what he is trying to do in regards to some aspects of free speech. Is this the environment that we want? No. But if there wasn't somebody like Tucker or Elon, I don't know what this space would look like exactly in that alternate reality. So I say good on this. I want to see more of it. And just wait till you see AOC saying we got to censor this person because, oh no, they're the threat to democracy. Even though we don't have
under
one.
capitalism, is it okay if I just make one more brief point? Because I know we're going to move on to the segment. Under capitalism, the only way to get your foot in the door is to accrue enough capital to get you there. It's a horrible situation. It's a horrible dynamic. It's one I wish did not exist, but that is the truth when you reach a certain level. And that's number one. Number two, yes, watching the libs melt down on social media is very, very satisfying. Make no apologies about that. But it does go beyond that. Like, it's not just liberals melting down on social media. It's a lot of institutions in this country, academia, the media, even finance to a large extent now, are dominated by the libs. And Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson, for all their faults, and I would admit there are many, they are disruptors. And this is something that the left very often does not concede about them. They say, oh, well, no, they only serve corporate power. Well, yes and no. They serve certain kinds of corporate power. But they are disruptors to the system. That's why the Pentagon was glad to see Tucker go. There was a whole write-up in that a bunch of DOD officials were celebrating that he was let go. Then they say he's hawkish on China. All right. Well, I mean, let's take this one world war at a time here, right? I mean, he's opposed to this one. He's the only voice in media who is. And as such, he did constitute a threat. He was a thorn in their side. That's why the DOD officials came out and said they were glad to see him fired. So it's not just the social media aspect. It's just not the part that we absorb most often because of what we do. But those kinds of people who are freaking out on social media, they have the institutional power in this country now, and they do not like Elon Musk, and they do not like Tucker Carlson, and they don't like them for a reason. It's not just because they embarrass them or rub them the wrong way. They do see them as a certain threat.
Now, I want to make one point because
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to make one more point just based on something you said actually very early on in this stream, and I'm going to show you guys an example because the left, their brain is completely broken. I saw the coverage that you guys did of Surf versus the last guy he debated, Tim Pool.
Oh yeah, Tim Pool. Yeah.
The point I'm making out of that is that you guys did a great analysis of how he got destroyed because he's not a critical thinker. He just repeats what you think his his woke allies want him to say.
I watched that too
He's not really well trained. So a lot of these people on the left, they turn their critical thinking skills on whether they know it or not. And I'm gonna give you guys an example. Tucker Carlson. Like, I'm gonna show you guys this tweet, and this is from a sock puppet account, but this is liberal mindset because I tweeted this link out. And remember when CJ, you said earlier, people get mad at us even just talking about Tucker Carlson and not a super, oh my God, he's a white supremacist, he's a racist, he's the worst thing ever. So I posted this. I said Tucker Carlson goes to Twitter, censorship pushing lists melt down because they are. And he said, fascist Tucker endorsed by revolutionary blackout.
Now, nowhere in that sentence did you say endorsing.
Now, what's I told you guys on the left is so
it's yo, man, I love you guys, but it's nice to see you get that shit too, man.
Oh no,
it's not just us.
No, we get that all the time. Yeah,
bro,
I didn't know it.
Ton of liberals gaslight, and then people who follow me, 'cause I got a decent amount of followers, they will call them out and they get ratioed. Like my liberals get ratioed in my tweets all the time because they will lie about us in the most open way. They're like, "You guys are Tucker apologists." They're like, "I did so many diss videos on this guy." I have respect for my audience because I know they know my opinions on Tucker, so I can give them a well-balanced, nuanced view of the situation.
Right.
We get the pros of Tucker, the cons of Tucker. And they can do that on any other news guest when they talk about Rachel Maddow. You can talk about Rachel Maddow without the intense hatred. You can talk about all these corporate media people without the intense hatred. And this is why I want to get in the mind of the leftists. This expose the people with Tucker Carlson derangement syndrome who vote Democrat. It expose them as unserious because they will say Tucker. The reason why he's uniquely bad, the reason why we must keep our foot on the metal, our foot on the gas on him, is because he's a racist. He's a white supremacist. That's why. That's why the Biden voter said we must have nothing but disdain for Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson legislates Biden legislates Tucker Carlson's ideology. The Democratic Party is funding ICE more.
Right.
They are arming Ukrainian Nazis. They are arming the police more. CJ, remember that study that we did? That study would show that when you ask black people what they care about racism, they care about the material. They care about the policies.
Yeah,
meanwhile, everyone else, white, Latinos, Asians, Muslim, whatever, they care more about virtue signaling. So it don't matter if you're a liberal. It don't matter if you support all these horrifically racist policies, as long as you say the good stuff. As long as you say the good stuff. So Tucker supports all the policies, like in terms of immigration that they do, but he don't say the right stuff, and we don't tolerate that. So the same disdain that they have, I know this is a long point, but the same disdain they have for us, or anyone who don't have an unhinged, we hate Tucker Carlson take, that's how I view people when it comes to Jim Crow Joe. You guys see, like Jim Crow Joe is someone who has power, who legislated racist, hardcore racist policies. But when you guys talk about Joe Biden, I don't see the vitriol that you guys have with Tucker Carlson. Which one is the bigger threat? Tucker Carlson or Joe Biden, Jim Crow Joe?
Well, no, they hate people who they cannot control, and they hate people who they cannot predict. So that's why when you look at a guy like Elon Musk, it's not that I like Elon Musk. I certainly don't like Elon Musk. We were the first to jump on him when he did that vindictive shit against Matt Taibbi, where he started throttling the Substack links and all that shit. No, he's an asshole, obviously. Yeah. But he's not the kind of asshole that the liberal establishment wants running this social media platform. They want the old guard.
He's not their asshole.
Right. They want Jack Dorsey. They want the neoliberal, technocratic, you can only say this, this, and this. Ooh, what's that? That looks like misinformation. Cancel, right? That's who they want in that spot. They don't want Elon Musk in that spot. Rupert Murdoch, he kept Tucker around for a while because Tucker was not just number one. He was the most successful anchor in the history of that time slot there. But would he rather have an O'Reilly there, just a blowhard who's going to repeat the talking points and put on a good show and mute people's mic? Of course, they'd rather have that, right? So it's not that Carlson and Musk are good guys, but they are not the kind of bad guys that the higher ups want in those spots.
Let me speak to what Nick said, and that is the post-duopoly context. I think that's what you guys we're describing when you're saying people are reacting to how we talk about Tucker, because we are people post-duopoly. We're not. You get what I'm saying? So when somebody who's in a fight and they're seeing somebody else describe it without emotion is like, what the hell? That's not how it happened. You get what I'm saying? They essentially tell the same story, but with all these other adjectives that gives it more emotion. And that's what we do. We strip all of that away and say, this is the bare bone facts of the matter.
Yeah, a lot of these
Sorry,
just your thing. A lot of these liberals who are in that mindset of just hating Tucker or Elon, the reason why they are acting the way they are is because they want to make sure that black voters, Latino voters, and everyone else, the white liberal, wants to make everyone complacent and be at brunch. They want to make sure that nothing's shaking up their picturesque vision of America, that everyone's friendly and nice, and oh gosh, gee golly, how could there be racism here in this country? Everything's fine, and oh, look at these Republicans, they're the bad guys. The liberal wants to keep everyone asleep. A lot of these vote blue no matter who people don't want to be waking up to the fact that the whole system is falling apart. The whole country is one big lie. The corporations are running the show, and our politicians are okay with signing us off as they kill our democracy, our republic, and our very rights that are being taken away from us. The vote blue no matter who and the liberal politicians want absolute control and silent, obedient consent. They don't want you to think for yourself. They don't want you to be friends with your neighbor. They don't want you to shine a light on the dead body that's in the middle of the field that is the United States of America. That's what's happening right now. And everyone is so triggered by Elon Musk and by Tucker. And yes, the analysis of Due Dissidence, HardLens Media, Revolutionary Blackout Network, because it upsets their worldview. And now they have to think critically, and they can't do it.
Well, I mean, these folks are what, because the right has kind of become the anti-establishment, they are coining most of the useful phrases to describe a lot of the contours of this phenomena. NPCs, non-player characters. That is a great way to describe it, because when you look at their politics, they don't have politics. They have programming. They have what they're told, and it's very Orwellian. I'm sure everyone here has had that experience where they believe one narrative one day, and literally the media will turn on a dime when it has to because something has been exposed that is inconvenient to the narrative, and they'll be saying the exact opposite thing the next week. So this is how you get people who are supposedly so anti-racist describing Joe Biden as a decent man. Right, because that's the talking point. That's how they it's kind of creepy. It's very Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like, they're told not only what to think but how to say it. You talk to these libs, they all use that expression. Joe Biden is a decent man. He's a decent man. Yes, he's old. He's a decent man. It's what they put in their brain. They do that all the time. Walls closing in. With just a final point before we move on. With Elon and Tucker and all of this, Keaton tweeted over to me Elon's response to it. And I actually got very excited about it. And this is why. For us in this space, they're closing the noose tighter and tighter and tighter, changing algorithms, adpocalypse, getting rid of dislike buttons, which really, I mean, they're getting pressured by their advertisers to do that. I just saw...
Vanguard really benefit from that one.
I think the Vanguard.
I just watched a video today that we're gonna get to them. Sure. I just watched a video today that claimed, I don't know if it's entirely true, that when you go to a channel now, they made a tweak where you don't see newest videos first. I don't know if that's entirely true, but it was a kind of big channel that made the claim. So that's why I say it. When I saw that, I said, this is only everyone's talking about it in this space. It's only going to get, well, people like us anyway. It's only going to get worse as we get closer to the election. That's part of what firing Tucker was probably about, right? They want to get narrative control ahead of the election, which is trouble for people like us who are not singing from the hymnal. The idea that Musk is going to figure out how to really monetize that and turn it into a competitor to YouTube, that gives us the promise of having a real lifeboat to go to, because Rumble, I mean, it's just not
then it just
doesn't have that audience that Twitter and YouTube do.